Hey guys, we are back at one of our favorite places. This is Community Beer Company in Dallas off 35 near 183 on the north side of the Skyline.
And I'm proud of us today.
Why? Because we have 4 beers in front of us?
We do have 4 beers in front of us. One belongs to a guest who we're having back, and that's why I'm proud of us. Because, you know, at least in my own personal life, I'm really good at opening something up, okay? And, you know, you need to get back to it at some point, but it feels like it takes you forever to get back to it.
Right.
We opened up this subject several weeks ago, and I've been dying to know the follow-up on this. How did it turn out? And I've seen some, you know, reports that have kind of trickled out about it, but it doesn't do it justice, and so we had to do this follow-up
Well, stop
today.
the tease. Tell us who we have here today.
Well, before I get to that, I have to say, you know, she has been here. She was on time. I was on time. Whiteley was, what, 25 minutes late?
It's raining.
Yeah, okay.
I can tell you're on time. You have plenty of beer in front of you,
the
too.
Weird
it's
thing
obvious.
the weird thing is, it was also raining when we were driving here.
It just started for me. I don't know.
That notwithstanding, though, I took it upon myself to order beers for everyone, you know, so that we would be ready to go when you finally arrived. And I got you exactly what I thought you would want. So why don't you just take a taste of that?
That's the funnel cake beer, I bet.
It is the funnel cake beer.
It's good. I've had this at the state fair.
It's funnel cake beer, and they asked me, would you like powdered sugar around the rim? Absolutely.
Yes.
Extra, please.
Not a question.
So that's what I got for you. That's what happens when
good.
you're late. I know you don't like sweet or fruity
No,
beers.
I don't mind that. I've had that at the state fair a few years ago. Have you guys had that before?
No, I haven't. I did, however, talk
let's introduce
Jessica.
our guest here.
It's Jessica Huseman.
Yeah.
I'm always curious if I'm pronouncing that right. Is it Huseman or Huseman?
Huseman.
Huseman. So I
Like
got it
who's
totally
the man
wrong.
without the
Huseman.
Let's start this over again. Then.
All right, so we've got
I'll start it.
Jessica Huseman.
Can we edit that out?
Yeah, from Votebeat. She's with us, and I have also talked her into having, by the way, the jackfruit barbecue sandwich here. We have ordered it.
I'm really
It
stoked.
is stunning. You do not know that you're not eating meat.
I'm
bizarre.
looking forward to it. I
It's
trust
good
your
stuff.
recommendation.
So that is on the way. Anyways, I say Jessica's with Votebeat. We had her on several weeks ago. For those who don't know, Votebeat is a nonprofit news organization, and I'm reading from their verbiage here, committed to reporting the nuanced truth about elections and voting at a time of crisis in America. That is a big job right now.
It's a big job. Yeah, it's a big job.
And you're the editorial director there, right?
Yes.
You just got back from Fredericksburg,
I did.
Gillespie County, a couple of weeks ago. And so on election night, Wheeler and I are watching all the returns come in at the big Yellowticks election headquarters. And we talked to you on election night. You were at a winery.
Sounds fun.
Where the Republican Party of Gillespie County was hand counting ballots. So before we dive into the irony and the comedy of this, lay out, kind of explain why they decided to do this in Gillespie County, the Republicans there decided.
Sure. So it follows a, you know, like a statewide and really like a nationwide fervor about hand counting and about not trusting voting machines. And this party was the only one in the state that decided to do this. And the reason that they can is because in Texas, the parties, Republican and Democratic, run their own primary. And there are very few rules as to what they must do as long as it doesn't literally violate Texas election law. Usually, and almost every party in the state contracts with their local elections office to run the election on their behalf, which they have to reimburse the county for, but they often do that. The Republican Party was like, nope, we don't want to do that. We can't make the county hand count its results, but we can hand count our primary results, so that's what we're going to do.
And this all stems from the big lie in 2020 that voting machines somehow cost Donald Trump the election, which has been debunked, but a lot of folks have still carried that forward and said we just don't trust the machines anymore.
Don't trust the machines. And they can't really articulate to you exactly why they don't trust the machines. It's just that they are machines and they do not trust them. They think, and I see why they think that this might be true, that if humans are touching and counting all of the ballots, then that process can't be hacked. This is not true, and I don't think played out in the way that they thought it would in Gillespie County.
Well, we covered the Iowa caucus a couple months ago, and we watched a bunch of hand counting there of caucus ballots, which was interesting.
Yeah.
When the different precincts would pass around a paper sack, a grocery bag.
Whiteley went viral for this.
As folks would drop their their ballots in there.
You posted the video of
I
that,
posted
and it
video
got
of it,
viewed like a
yeah.
gazillion times.
It's amazing they did that. So anyway, so Gillespie County, Fredericksburg, Texas, north of San Antonio, west of Austin.
Gillespie also includes Lukenbach, Texas, if you're a Willie Nelson fan, and the home of former President Lyndon B. Johnson.
LBJ.
Yes,
his
I
ranch
drove
is
through
there.
Johnson City on the way down.
Yeah?
There is also happened, and I didn't know about this until I went on this trip, and I'm super angry they didn't do it at this winery, but there is a winery in Gillespie County called the Rhinery, and it is an honest-to-God rhino sanctuary and vineyard.
Oh my gosh! You
And
can't
I'm
script this stuff
not
better.
kidding. It is called the Rhinery. Can you imagine if the Republicans had hand-counted their ballots at the Rhinery?
Missed opportunity, huh? So,
Missed
You
opportunity.
cannot write better stuff.
No,
so
you cannot.
there were 8,000 ballots cast in the Republican primary election in Gillespie County. They thought 8,000 ballots, not bad. We'll get a bunch of people. We'll divvy it up. We'll start counting through. How did it go?
Not well. Did not go well.
What happened? Multiple errors, right?
Yeah, multiple. So I want to set the scene a little bit here. Okay, so here's what Texas law requires. So ballots must be counted at the place if you're going to count ballots by precinct, which you have to do if you're hand counting ballots. You have to do it at the precinct. And so the only ballots that were being counted at the winery were the ones that had been mailed in or were cast early, because Texas has like 3 weeks of early voting, right? And so the folks at the winery around these glass windows, right, that I was peering in, like, just like this, like a
great.
weirdo. All day. So I was watching them do that, but then there were also 13 precincts, voting precincts. So they
Sure.
were really counting ballots in 14 separate locations.
Oh my gosh.
All day long.
That sounds like a lot.
And so we couldn't watch that at all because the law does not allow the media to be inside of precincts.
So you're looking through a window at
So
some
I was
people counting
looking
at the
through
winery.
a window at a winery, but
Right.
we didn't have any visibility into what was going on at the 13 precincts.
And you did not have much fun for being at a winery in Fredericksburg, Texas that night.
No. You know,
I had to be with Wheeler that night, so you had the
Right.
you had
you
the
had it
easy
better.
Y'all
assignment.
probably had more booze than I did.
You'd be
Despite
surprised.
having stayed
I
up
needed
all
the booze
night
that
at
night.
a winery, no one offered me a
But
single glass of wine.
But on top of that, you were not exactly welcomed with open arms, even though there has been this fervor about we want cameras and eyes on the process, we want people to see, we want transparency, et cetera, et cetera. You're there sort of trying to provide that. People did not want you there.
Right, and let's keep in mind that 3 years ago, this is the exact same county where the entire elections department quit, just up and walked out because the Republican Party was so fervent about how close observers need to be to the counting and tabulation process. And so they have gone from that to a situation in which I can't go in at all, and poll watchers can go in. But do you know how hard it is to get people to volunteer to be a poll watcher over 21 hours in 14 separate locations?
Wow.
The campaigns cannot recruit enough volunteers for that. They couldn't even get enough people that can count the ballots.
So what happened on election night? They start counting, and were any mistakes made at the winery, or did those happen at the different precincts as they start?
The mistakes were made everywhere. And so here's the thing.
And what kind of mistakes are these? They just didn't put the Post-it note on there saying there were 96 ballots when there were 97, or what?
People would read 305 instead of 315 or 351 instead of 315, or they'd transpose another number, or they would misalign something, or they would add up the columns correctly in one but not in the other. I mean, this is 200 individual people doing math by hand. So like you can imagine, I don't know if any of you have ever graded a math quiz or something, or like
Wow.
tried to help your kid with his homework, but like that's not possible.
Well, not only are you doing that, you're doing it for 21 hours straight.
Well,
it took them 21 hours.
It took them 21 hours, and that is not nearly as much time as I expected them to take, and suggests to me that there are way more errors than is reasonable.
Okay, so when we talk about how hard this is, I love that the write-up that you all did on this going into this count, and I just want to say a little bit of it here. It says, imagine being asked to count the number of sheets in a large ream of paper, the kind you get from Staples. Then mistakes are not allowed, no programs are allowed like Excel Plus. You have to then do it 80 times because there are 40 contests with 2 candidates each. That sounds just tedious.
Right, and so there were 8,000 ballots, but there were about 35 choices on that ballot,
Jeez.
right? And so it's not 8,000 ballots, it's 8,000 times 35. That's actually what they're counting. And there have been studies that other counties have done, like Shasta County, California, I was actually just there last week, tried to do this, right? That's a longer story, but the very good election administrator there did this huge study that took months, and they trained people to do this, and they figured out that in order to count a batch of 25 ballots, a group of people needed about 90 minutes. In Fredericksburg, they were doing it at about 2.5 times that speed.
Wow. So they were going fast.
They were going fast.
Fast does not always
mean
mean
accurate. And they
accurate.
also didn't check their results. So let me compare the process here. So I watched this with my eyeballs. They counted all the ballots. They wrote the numbers down on pieces of paper. They took those pieces of paper to the county elections office. They gave them, and then they went home. By comparison, the Travis County Republicans, which is where Austin is, decided to do some hand counting, but they only hand counted the mailed ballots that came in. So that was it. And it was about 2,000 ballots. Austin's obviously a lot bigger than Gillespie, but that's still a smaller number of overall ballots, right? So they were counting 2,000 ballots. Gillespie's counting 8,000. They don't finish until 8 o'clock in the morning. Gillespie County finish at around 4.
So 8,000 ballots, multiple mistakes in the count. None of the mistakes, though, actually changed the outcome of the races, right?
That we know of.
That we know of, right.
So zoom out a little bit here for us, Jessica. The irony here is it's more comedy, I guess, than irony in this whole thing. Did anyone admit to lessons learned there?
She just put a
just
sweet
put
potato
a-
chip
I
in her
warned
mouth.
I should have warned you, Jessica. You
And
should
like,
know this.
honestly, I should just know better.
Her
but
jackfruit sandwich.
My questions are shorter than Wheeler's questions,
Yeah,
so
when
only take a bite during Wheeler's questions
I was
or
gonna
take a
say the
drink.
same thing.
His go on for 2 or 3 minutes. Mine are like 10 seconds.
That jackfruit sandwich
I
and
get
sweet
right
potato
to it.
fries just arrived.
But go ahead.
And,
I'll
and,
talk to
hungry.
Wheeler for a
and
minute
I
while
was
you do
going to
that.
tell her, like, hey, wait till I ask you a question
Yeah.
and then do
then
this.
take a bite.
We need to do that at the beginning for our
Yeah, I
guests.
should have
Yeah,
put that
well-
disclaimer out there.
Next time I'll know.
okay.
But as far as
what
lessons
did
learned-
you just ask me?
Yeah, so the Republicans there and a lot of places have been complaining about, we don't trust machines.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
going to hand count it. This is the only way to do it right. Well, they did that. It didn't work out. Did anyone admit to lessons learned?
One dude.
What
One dude.
did he say?
Was like, I don't have any faith in this. He was the precinct captain for one of the precincts. And the only reason we know about a lot of these errors is because he told Natalia this. He's quoted in the piece on the record.
She's one of your reporters, Natalia.
Natalia, yeah, she's the reporter who's writing most of these Gillespie stories. He was like, I woke up the next morning and had a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach and decided to redo all of my math. I caught 4 or 5 errors. And
Just in his math?
Just in his own math.
He had a sinking feeling.
Because what that should tell you is that in Travis County, the reason it took them so long is because they finished counting the ballots around midnight, but then they spent 8 hours doing it all over again and verifying the count and they caught errors in that process, right? And so they had to go back and recount and make sure it was fine. Gillespie did not take that step at all. They just turned in the results as they had them when they finished counting. There was no verification, there was no checks. And because Texas state law does not require manual counts to be audited, it's not going to be audited. And the county Republicans in Gillespie County have already told us they are not going to voluntarily audit it.
So it's done?
It's done.
So if this were machines, though, that could be audited.
It would be audited.
Okay, but if it's a hand count, there's nothing in the law to say that it should be audited.
Not a thing.
But it is going to be audited by you guys.
We're going to audit it.
Can you tell us about that, why you're doing that, and how involved that's going to be?
Oh, it's going to take us, if any of your listeners want to donate some money for us, we are a nonprofit. So under Texas law, and this changed last year, it used to be that ballots were kept secure and out of public viewing for 21 months. Now it's
21 months?
21 months.
Oh, wow.
And now it's 60 days.
Republicans got that changed.
Republicans got that changed, so thanks, because we will be asking for all of the ballots in 60 days and retabulating them.
What do you think you'll find, Jessica?
I think we'll find more errors than they know about right now, because the only thing, the only thing that they've at this point redone is the overall counts, right? Like, they could have made errors on individual ballots. We have, for example, no idea how this group of people decided when a ballot wasn't clear. So it was all hand marked, right? And I don't know if you've ever looked at a Scantron or whatever, right? But people do not fill in the whole bubble.
Hanging chads, yeah.
Right. They do a cross instead of filling it in, or they like try to erase something and cross it out, and they're like, no, I didn't want this one, I want this one actually. And in those circumstances, Texas law requires an adjudication process. Like, two people have to sit down and decide what they think that ballot means. It goes to a separate committee. I have no idea how they did that.
When are you going to start this audit that you guys are doing?
60 days,
another 30 days from now or so?
Wednesday after the election.
And how long will it take?
I don't know. I've never done this in my life.
But you guys will use machines.
We'll use machines, yeah.
Because those are here.
They're here. We have the technology. Yeah, and there are companies who make tabulators that essentially use optical character recognition to. You have to program them, and that'll take some time. But this is not impossible to do, right? And it's certainly, and I will point out, the Gillespie County Republicans could have done it with their existing technology, but chose not to.
What kind of reaction have you had from your reporting from other folks?
It's been a real mixed bag. So the Gillespie County Republicans have gone hardcore on right-wing media, portraying this as a success. And they seem to be defining success as we finished in the time required under the law.
Because they had to get it done within a day.
They had to get it done within a day, and they did. Whether or not those results are accurate, I don't think that you can say with any certainty at all. Like, I have no confidence in the results, and I am absolutely confident. I would bet my house that we will find more results than what they're aware of when we go back and do the audit.
And Jessica, you were there.
I was there. I was watching.
So you didn't just hang out at the winery all day. You went out and you talked to GOP voters who were in line or had just voted. And what did they say?
They did not. It was amazing. It was the most infuriating thing. It was like the party officials were telling me how amazing hand counting was and how it was going to save our republic, and none of their voters cared at all. I did not talk to a single Republican voter who knew that it was happening and supported it. There was one guy who was like, oh, they're doing that? That seems okay. I haven't really thought about it, though. Everybody else was like, yeah, I don't get it. I mean, I guess it's fine, but I don't know why they're doing it. I didn't distrust the machines. So no one is asking for this, right? Like, it's not like there is an upstart of like grassroots Republican voters in Gillespie County demanding hand counts. It is all the Tea Party, far right wing, just really virulent section of the party making demands for everyone and taking up huge amounts of time and energy. Like, these folks trained people for 6 months. This is, I am confident, the longest and most organized project that Republican Party has ever put on in its entire existence, and this is what they chose to do with everybody's time. That is unfortunate.
And money. Because I think that a lot of people don't understand that, you think, oh, well, that's Gillespie.
That's right. Take a drink now.
Yes,
you have plenty of time.
Now you can take a bite of that jackfruit sandwich, I assure you.
We can step out of the car and, change the oil, but go ahead, Wheeler, go ahead.
So, the thing that occurs to me here, though, is that a lot of people think, well, this is some county out in the middle of Central Texas. It's a party out there, not my problem, whatever. This ultimately costs the state, which is, funded by all of us.
Yeah. My property taxes funded this. Your property taxes funded this. Yeah.
Because they get money from the state.
The state parties do pay the initial cost of the primary, whether they choose to run it themselves or they choose to contract with the county, which is, again, what most of them do. But then the state reimburses them for most of that cost. Not all of it, but the vast majority of it. And that does not come from, they don't, dog-ear taxpayers and Gillespie money for Gillespie County elections, right? It is a pile, and we're reimbursed. So Gillespie County spent significantly more per ballot to count those ballots than Dallas County did, than Tarrant County did, than Travis County did.
Because those were machines.
Because they were machines, and they took, a couple of hours to count, and Gillespie County had folks doing this for 21 hours.
And each one of them is being paid per hour.
Each one of them has to be paid. Gillespie County Republicans are doing their media hits and calling these folks volunteers. And sure, they did volunteer to do this really ridiculous thing. But they got paid for it, right? You have to, under law, pay people who tabulate ballots, and that's what these people were doing. And so they were all paid about $12 an hour to show up and do this. And not all 200 of them were working all 21 hours. There was some shifts, but it was 21 hours of tons of people working continuously to hand count ballots that then had errors in them, and so they had to fix them at the canvas, and then they had more errors, so they come back and do it again.
Wow.
Right? And so we're talking about a process that, in addition to the 21 hours of counting, has consumed dozens more hours of trying to figure out where things went wrong. But then before that, 6 full months of attention trying to train people on a process that ultimately didn't work. And they're modeling this as a success. And we have heard from other GOP chairs in Central Texas saying, oh no, we can do that. Gillespie County did it and they had no problems.
So this isn't going away?
No.
So people might be watching this and saying, well, I mean, so what's better then? Is it hand counting, or is it the machines, the Scantron, the tabulators? Obviously, it depends on the county size. You couldn't do that in Harris County, Dallas County, Bexar
They
County.
thought about it in Dallas County.
They did.
There'd be a lot more. But you've covered enough elections in your career. Do you have a thought on which one might be more accurate? I mean, it tells me the machines are a hell of a lot more accurate, but am I wrong in that?
No, the machines are more accurate, and there are tons of studies that will tell you this, right? There's going to be a small error margin regardless of what we do. That's just how life works.
Yeah.
There is a small margin of error in banking and in insurance and in the electricity
When you
grid.
go to the grocery store,
When you go to the
it
grocery
might
store.
ring up as a different price than what
Yeah.
it is, but it probably would be better than if the checker just sort of does the math in their head, looking at price tags of everything you bought.
Exactly. And so, we have all of these studies that suggest that the tabulators are better than the people. But then, we have all of these laws that make it so that we have genuine confidence in those tabulated results, right? When Dallas County tabulates its results, we can go back and check to make sure that those results are accurate, because the results are on paper. You can tabulate them later. You can do a random sampling. You can do a risk limiting audit. You can then hand count after the tabulation is already done. You can check it multiple different ways. But in a hand count, you're only getting one shot at it. And they're already proving that the one shot that they took was what didn't really swing straight.
Do you have any feeling going into this next legislative session about whether there will be changes made to encourage more of this hand counting or to discourage it?
I don't know. I mean, I think that the Republican Party continues to sort of agitate over this, and Donald Trump has used a lot of his campaign rallies so far to continue saying things against mail ballots and to continue saying things against machines. And the logical extension of we don't want mail ballots, we don't want early ballots, and we don't want machines is hand-cast, hand-counted voting.
But then we want people to stop counting at midnight and declare a winner and not have the counting go into the next day or days
and not
after.
use any machines, not use any spreadsheets, but still make sure everybody's vote got counted exactly in the way that they intended. It's an impossible task. And it's an occasion that they absolutely did not rise to, and they are claiming repeatedly over and over and over again that they did it with success. And I imagine that their very one-sided portrayal of the way that they chose to do this is going to rope other counties. I'm most concerned about Kerr County, for example, into doing the same thing. And then 300 people in Kerr County will also be wrapped into counting ballots for 21 hours there, and they will make the same mistakes and no one will check. And that's what's happening right now.
This can only happen, though, in the primaries right now, right? According to Texas law now, unless it's changed in 2025.
So
it can't happen in general elections or muni
The
elections.
commissioner's court in one of these counties could vote to do it in the general.
To put the machines out on the sideline and hand count.
The counties get to choose how they count their ballots.
Conduct it, yeah.
And so the reason that Gillespie County as a whole didn't do this is because the Gillespie County's commissioner court was like, we're not doing that, that's insane. And so the Republicans were like, fine, we'll do it ourselves.
So do you expect Kerr County commissioners to
They
do
have
this?
the votes. They have the
Wow.
votes. Yeah, and their last election commissioner left over this already. And so now they're working with somebody who's never run an election before and is going to be asked to figure out how to hand count thousands of ballots in a pretty high population Central Texas County.
Imagine the conflict and the controversy that could create if there's not a quick result in an election, in a general election.
Exactly. And I think that the Gillespie County, it appears to me that the Gillespie County Republicans went after a fast result rather than an accurate count. And they're using the fact that they have a fast result as an indicator of success, when it is not at all.
You've covered a lot of stuff, Jessica. My last question is, I'm curious where this kind of falls and everything. You've seen different pieces of legislation around voting, court cases around voting, and this seems to be pretty different. Is this the pinnacle of it, the culmination of it, or are we going off the side of a cliff here?
This is the weirdest and least responsible thing I have seen any party do related to elections in this state in the 8 years I have been covering elections.
Wow.
And I'm just like, that is flat out, far and away, this is the least responsible thing I've ever seen anyone do. It is really, really bad, and it is really, really damaging to voter confidence and the accuracy of results in that county, both now and also in a lasting way, right? Like they have radically altered the way that this county is going to interact with its election system. And even if they choose not to hand count again, and I can't imagine that they will, because I watched how hard it was for them, and I watched how stressed out and panicked they were. Like, if they choose to do it again, like, I don't know. It's just going to be a mess.
Jessica, we have to have you back a third time when this audit that you all are doing is complete. I've got to know. Please don't tell the world about that audit until you come here and we do it all at once.
You can have first dibs.
I'm dying to know how this turns out.
We should do it at the Winery. We should do it at the Winery.
Go to the Winery for that.
Can we do like
We're
a
gonna
field
do a road trip?
Okay, good.
Yes.
The Winery.
We'll put it on Wheeler's credit card.
Yeah,
Perfect.
just I put that jackfruit sandwich on there. You've got to start eating that right now. Jessica, and I'm going to get it right this time. Jessica Huseman with Votebeat.
There you go, finally. Wheeler.
Thanks again for doing this with us.
Thank you.
It's
I
a great
appreciate
follow-up.
it. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, Whiteley, you've barely touched that beer.
I'm
I
one
still
ahead
see
of you.
powdered sugar
I'm one ahead of
across
you.
the whole
Yeah.
rim.
The valet's outside.